You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. Today it is myself, Mooncey. Alongside me, we have coaching royalty in the house, the CEO of Coaching You. He's been on teams that you might have heard of. You might have heard of the Bad Boys. You might have heard of the Dream Team. He's the one, the only Coach Brendan Suhr. Coach Suhr, how you doing today, my brother?
Mo, it is great to be with you again. I
Welcome
love being
back.
with you.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
I love being with you every time, and thank God we got rid of BJ. So we can have some fun. No, we miss our brother BJ, and yeah, so this is fun. I love the playoffs, as you know, and there's nothing like it. I was talking to BJ this morning, and the thing that's amazing is that when you get to the playoffs, it's a whole other thing from the regular season. And and as you keep going through each round, you think you're going to settle into something. Each round, Mo, takes on a life of its own.
hmm
And it's so hard to explain to someone that's never been in it. When you look at the NCAA college stuff, it's one and done. You can get lucky. You can have a good day. You can have a terrible day and you're out. This is the first team to win 4 games. 4 games is really hard to win. I mean, it's really hard. Now, the thing about the Timberwolves that's absolutely incredible is this team has played 10 games so far, and they beat the Lakers as the underdog in the first round, 4-1, the great LeBron James, Luka Doncic. And then in the next round, Steph Curry got hurt.
hmm
Okay. So they didn't have anything, but 4-1, they finished them off. Losing game one, won four straight. This is really a good team, the Wolves, I think.
They've
And
they've
so
improved as the season's progressed with integrating Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert together.
Julius Randle, if there's an all NBA playoff team of the 10 best players, he might be in the first five, in the first two
Oh,
rounds of the
without a
playoffs.
doubt,
Yeah.
without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Just
Uh,
just been fabulous.
for you guys who did not see game one of the Western Conference Finals, the Oklahoma City Thunder took a 114 to 88 win against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Coach Sarah and I were discussing just before we came on to record. We thought that this would end up being a really good game, given by what happened in the first half.
Right.
In the first half, the Timberwolves on both sides of the basketball were stupidly locked in. I think Julius Randle had 20 points in the first half, talking about Julius Randle. The Wolves defense in particular really frustrated Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that first half of basketball. He couldn't find any rhythm except for getting to the free throw line, which I'm sure we'll discuss at some point in this
Sure.
show. But what kept OKC in the game, their three-pointers weren't falling. What kept them in the game, because they were getting out-rebounded by the Wolves as well, was their points off Minnesota turnovers. Timberwolves had 6 turnovers. Excuse me. I'm choking just the way the Timberwolves choked to win this
I
game.
was just gonna say,
They had 6 turnovers in the first 10 minutes, which was insane.
well, I'll let you get a little glass of water there. I know you get choked up every time you talk to me, but the thing is, Minnesota has a really good defensive team. Jaden McDaniel's one of the very, very best in the league. Anthony Edwards can be one of the best, and Rudy Gobert, as we know, when he plays big, shot blocker, rebounder, and just changes shots at the rim. You don't get anything easy against them. And so, and we didn't see Gobert hardly in the second half at all, because I think they felt they had to score the ball. But I'll tell you what, I still think this is going to be a good series. Um, but I'll tell you what, OKC is the real deal. It's funny, the people in the States don't give them any respect, even though they had the best record in the league.
Why do
They
you think that is? Because it's a small
too
market,
young.
because their best player's
Too,
Canadian.
no, neither. Too young. They never got they lost in the second round last year.
hmm
So they downplay how good they really are. And but having gone through the playoffs many times, you do have to go through the process. I think they're ready for it. They have one of the youngest coaches in the league, Mark Daigneault. Uh, the scary part is I've known Mark since he's like 20 years old. His wife did gymnastics when my daughter was in they were in high school together. I mean, I've known him and his family forever. He is one of the very best coaches. And I really think Dagnall should be our Olympic coach, believe it or not,
Okay.
the LA 28, because his amazing ability to just stay calm, but also connect with players. And he really has a great understanding for a young coach that it's about the players, not him. And which is a really US NBA coaches really have a pretty good grasp of that. Where I follow all the football over in Europe. I love the Premier League and all that. And I watched the different coaches, and you could really see how some are very calm, very, it's the same in any sport and any country. But he's really a special guy. But they have great young talent, and I'm just what they did in the second half, like 70-40. I mean,
Well,
think
well,
about that.
the Timberwolves were up four at halftime,
Yep,
and the OKC Thunder went on a 10-0 run to take the lead, which then turned into a 17-2 run to run up a double-digit lead. Since the 96-97 season, the teams with the most 10-0 runs in a single season, the OKC Thunder have 106 10-0 runs in a
that's
single season.
amazing.
The next best team is the 22 Warriors with 98. So there's a gap between this OKC team. And it all begins on the defensive side of the
Yeah.
basketball. Their ability to force the opponents into turnovers and then get out like a flash of lightning and score on the other end. When you look at the points in the paint, OKC 54-20 for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I want to know how many of those were just off the turnovers. I think it was 12-0 in fast break points as well. But it's the defense that stifles them. And then when teams are suffering the 10-0 run, they start getting in their heads a little bit and they keep repeating the mistakes that led to the 10-0 run in the first place. For example, I saw a lot of possessions where Naz Reid was trying to post up Jalen Williams, J-Dub. And you think logically, all right, Naz Reid, power forward, Jalen Williams, not Naz Reid. You think that's a good matchup. And then it leads to a turnover. The Thunder get out, they run and score. The Timberwolves go right back to it, and Thunder turnover, get out and score. And it's like it kind of compounds the mistakes because the teams get frustrated and they're losing the ball and they're trying to go back to what they were running, and they end up turning it over again and again.
Yeah, basketball, as you know, Mo, is a really different sport, I think, than football in Europe. And the
Mm.
reason that makes it so interesting is I'm not sure how much in football you can change your style of play within the game, one game.
No, because you don't get
But
timeouts or anything.
no, right. And the game is continuous and stuff. But I'll tell you what, OKC is the best team in the NBA for adjustments within the game, but especially at halftime. I think in the first half, they see what you want to do, they let you kind of do it, and then at halftime, they figure out what you're going to do. If you remember on Sunday, Denver came in, had a very good lead, and then with 3 minutes to go in the second quarter, all of a sudden the dam burst and it was over. I mean, they just went on this incredible run in the last 3 minutes and then the second half to the point where it turned into almost a 40-point game. So I give that a combination of coaching adjustments, but also the players, like anything else, it's always the players. They have to be able to execute the adjustments, and that's what they do superbly.
Not only was OKC's defense fantastic in creating turnovers and getting out and running, the Timberwolves, speaking of making adjustments, they didn't seem to make many adjustments. They went 15 of 51 from behind the arc. I felt like I was watching my Boston Celtics again. And it's the same conversation that I have about the Boston Celtics when they continue to shoot threes. The Wolves, I got a stat here. The Wolves took 61.4% of their shots from three, the second highest rate of the entire playoffs. Only the Boston Celtics took more of their shots from three. The Thunder, on the other hand, took just 25.6%, the second fewest in the playoffs. Only the Houston Rockets took less threes than the OKC Thunder. When you look at OKC right now, 11 of 21 from three. They only made four less than the Timberwolves, despite taking 30 less attempts.
Mo, I think this is interesting. Before you told the audience that it was 54-20 from in the paint.
Mm.
Not one of them was a post up like by a
Hmm.
post player. They were all
Hmm.
drives and
Yep. Drives
players.
or cuts.
The great Tony Parker from Paris, of course, he led the NBA like 2 or 3 years in a row on points scored in the paint, and he just penetrated off the dribble. OKC has the best drivers with the basketball of any team in the NBA. They have like I think their philosophy is to put four players of the five on the court at all time that can beat you off the dribble, and they do that. And and the other thing is and I know you were going to talk about it later, but when they do drive, they get you in foul trouble.
Hmm.
And a lot of people think that Shea gets too many calls, but you know what? When you're the best player in the league, you know, Michael Jordan used to get the most calls, Karl Malone, Luka Doncic, LeBron, all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best
yeah.
players. Yeah, so I have no problem with it.
We'll get to that in a sec. But I
Yeah,
wanted
and
to I
yeah,
wanted to just talk about before the depth of the OKC Thunder because we've seen a lot of teams in this playoffs, like for example Denver, who got eliminated in the last round. They really struggled with depth. The OKC Thunder have so much depth that we saw Kenrick Williams come out here for that stretch in the third quarter when they went on their run. They went to a smaller lineup with both Chet and Hartenstein getting rest, and Kenrick Williams was their five, and he hit three shots. You wouldn't expect him to make, but if you've been watching OKC, you know that every player on this roster is capable of not only playing defense, but also hitting shots. And I do also have to say, Kerry Williams, what's going on with the haircut, bro? This might be the worst haircut in the entire NBA right now. I don't. He's got like the little. It kind of cuts off at the back, and then there's long hair underneath. I don't know about that, but what I do
he's
know is his impact on the game was ridiculous.
he's had that since high school, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
I don't know the reason.
I almost think it's a birth thing. I don't no, I don't think it's
Oh, I
a
feel bad
fashion.
now.
It's not.
I
Yeah,
feel
no.
bad now. I thought it was a style.
I'll when I talk to him, I'll let him know that you didn't really mean it. But I think what they do is he's a non-drafted player, I believe. They have so many players that they just get that they love what they do. They really scout well, and then they do a great job of player development. And he's one of them. But he's always been an excellent defender, not an offensive player. But
Hmm.
the confidence that Daignault has in his guys, and sometimes like Kendrick did not play. I don't even remember
He
him
played
getting
more
in the
minutes
Denver
tonight than he
series.
did in the entire Denver series.
Right. I didn't even remember him getting in, except
And I
maybe in
just
one of the.
checked. It's a Texas thing. From where he is in Texas, that's the style and from where he's from.
Yeah, he went to TCU in Fort Worth, Texas, and
Apologies
maybe
to my Texas people. I didn't mean to offend your coach like that. I thought it was just
you're
him.
no, no. I would just leave it alone right now.
Luckily, I never in Texas, so we good. We good.
You good? Okay.
But do you know what else I want to talk about, right? Is something that's insane to me is the fact that OKC took potentially their biggest weakness from last year's playoffs. And I don't want to blame Josh Giddey for them losing in last year's playoffs, but they could essentially be guarded 4-on-5 when he was on the court because he wasn't a
Sure.
shooting threat. And they just straight up swapped him for a player in Alex Caruso who's making a ridiculous impact, not just on the defensive side of the ball, where he's been tasked with guarding Jokic in the last round, guarding Julius Randle tonight, but also he shot 100% from the field tonight, or 75% from the field tonight, 100% from three. He is coming up big, especially in key moments down the stretch of games. And they just swapped out their biggest weakness to now what could arguably be an X factor that they have over everyone else in the NBA because I know all contenders in the league wanted Alex Caruso.
Alex Caruso, I coached against him when he was at Texas A&M when I was coaching at LSU and I had Ben Simmons. And Alex Caruso was a non-drafted player. And I saw a picture yesterday. He played for Mark Daignault
Mm.
on the Oklahoma City G League team.
Yep.
How about that? And here they made a huge trade to take the sixth pick in the draft, in Giddy, and trade him for a guy straight up. And I'll tell you what, he's totally the missing piece. 31-year-old guy, but he's the Swiss Army knife, so to speak, defensively for them. He's so valuable, and this is where he really earned his money now.
You saw it in game 7 when they started the game kind of nervous. He was the one who really settled them down because he's the only one with championship experience on their roster. But let's talk about the kind of headline when it comes to the OKC Thunder, and that is free throws and foul calls. Because I don't know whether it's something that I should complain about or be impressed by. The fact that they're allowed to defend with so much physicality, but on the other end, it feels like you can't even breathe near them without any of them, or in particular Shea Alexander, getting to the free throw line. Like, think about the way Alex Caruso or Lou Dort defends. Now, if they were on the other team defending Shea like that, they'd be fouled out in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I've always felt that having coached my style of teams were always really good defensive teams. You have to be consistent the way you play, and OKC plays this way all year long. They are not making any adjustments. A lot of teams they say, well, when we get to the playoffs, the game will slow down. We'll do that. No, they play them in Indiana play the same style, and the Knicks really the same way all the time. But they defend, they drive the ball, they get to the foul line, but they defend with even though they're not tall and big. Hartenstein's are really only and Dort are the only physically super strong guys. They defend with great physicality, as you mentioned. So I think they get calls because they earn them, the respect they get from the officials.
I think some of them calls though are insane. Like the physicality that teams in the Eastern Conference play with compared to some of the way the OKC series have been officiated, there is a big disparity in them. And some of the calls tonight were just, I, I was getting annoyed watching it, but that's how they play. That's the refs are falling for it every time. What can you do about it?
Yeah, I mean now at this point now the 20 refs that we have now they're doing the conference finals from both conferences. Uh, I looked at them today. And these are the best guys that we have in the league. The three today were not the three best we have in the league by any means, but they're good officials. I also agree with you that Shea gets a good whistle, but that's why he's going to be the MVP, I think, also, but it's special. But
Yeah.
again, I think, 67 wins, they've earned it.
Yeah, it's like Draymond Green. He gets away with a lot on defense because that's just who he is. That's why Dort and Caruso and these guys can guard the way they do. On the other side of the basketball, I don't know if you get to the finals, maybe you get less of those free throw attempts because, it was rough for OKC at the start of the game. The first quarter, they couldn't get anything going in the half court. Shea couldn't manufacture any shots. But then there was the stretch in the third quarter, right? They outscored the Timberwolves 32-18 in the third. And
Hmm.
Shea by himself scored or assisted on 20 of those 32 points. So single-handedly outscoring the Minnesota Timberwolves. I was really impressed as well in the minutes without Shea to start the fourth quarter with Chet Holmgren making an impact on the defensive side, also offensively rolling to the hoop, making off-ball cuts as well. He then carried that momentum when Shea came back into the game to be that number two option that was there for the Thunder. But just going back to what you said about them not having the size, down the stretch of this game, to really close it out, they went ultra small ball. They didn't
Yeah,
have any bigs on the floor whatsoever. And the Timberwolves, they had Randall and Naz Reid, who weren't like traditional fives. But
right.
it's interesting because the narrative this season has been, oh, big men are back in the NBA. It's all about the centers in the NBA. Yet here we are now watching, okay, two teams go down the stretch in the fourth quarter without
No
any
center.
centers.
Yeah,
And then when we watch tomorrow's game, and we'll talk about the Eastern Conference Finals as well, you're going to have two centers on the floor in Miles Turner and Karl-Anthony Towns, who arguably their biggest skill sets is shooting the three ball. So
exactly.
all of the centers are back. Maybe we're gonna have to wait for next year for that one, but,
Uh,
but for now,
yeah, no, I think we have a very interesting final four teams. Certainly, there's probably not an expert that thought this was going to be the final four teams. No one, no one thought that Boston wasn't going to get here.
yeah.
I think 90% of the people thought it was going to be a Cleveland Boston,
hmm
right?
hmm And most people picked either a Lakers or a Warriors or a Clippers to be here as well.
Everyone was picking them. Everyone said OKC, they're too young. They're not going to get here. So I think we have four teams that no one thought was really going to get here. I
Well,
really believe that.
Anthony Edwards picked up an injury in the second quarter, and he went back to the locker room for a stretch. Do you think that's going to hamper him as the series progresses, or do you think he's young enough to kind of
What
bounce
what
back? And
what did they I never heard the report of what they said it
it was
was.
his ankle. He came
Oh, really?
down and landed on Caruso's foot, twisted his ankle. I
Yeah,
don't think it's
yeah.
anything serious, but he had 0 points in the fourth quarter. He didn't look like himself
I
down the
was
stretch
just
of this
going to
game.
say he was not an impactful guy at all tonight. When is the next game? Is it Thursday?
I think it's 48 hours between games still.
Yeah. So it's they've had so much time off, and now when you get an injury, if it doesn't blow up, he's got a shot. But ankles are funny. I mean, and you just don't know. I mean, but uh, I hate to say it, but he's kind of bionic, this guy. I mean,
Mm.
he's superhuman almost. So I expect him to be back. Uh, but Randall's got a. I think their whole team.
Uh,
I don't
I mean,
know. I
Randall
don't
was
know.
amazing in the first half. The OKC
He,
once again made an adjustment on him in the second half,
I
but the
don't.
first half he was torching him.
I don't think he scored in the second half till like 10 minutes,
He didn't score
10
in the
minutes to go
third.
in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which you can't have. So you have to be able to when you're on the road, their whole goal coming in of any team, road team, is to try to win one of these two games. And I always felt when we won as a home team, the hardest game for us was going to be game two
Mm.
because human nature says everyone in OKC is patting all their players on the back for the next 48 hours. And so they're telling them how great they are. And it's really hard to get your coach, as a coach, to get them to come back down to earth and say, it's one game.
Hmm.
Now, we'll see how these guys are maturing. I think they are.
And also just going back to Randall, he had 20 points in the first half, 28 he finished with, but it's not like he was inefficient. He was 9 of 13, 5 of 6 from three. He just wasn't getting the looks. They were forcing the ball out of his hands. And it was Anthony Edwards shot 3 of 8 from downtown, Jaden McDaniels 1 of 3, Mike Conley 1 of 5, Naz Reid 0 of 7, Dante DiVincenzo 3 of 12, Nickeil Alexander Walker 2 of 9. When you're getting that terrible shooting performance
Yeah.
from your role players, right? Aside from Edwards and Randall, no one shot above 33% from behind the arc. When you can't make shots like that, either stop taking them and come up with a new strategy, or you're going to lose the game.
Yeah. I think the big thing for Minnesota is the perimeter defenders for OKC are so good, they have to take advantage of their size. And so they have to get Randall around the basket or at least at the elbow and in. Don't put him out at the 3-point line like you did to Golden State.
Mm.
I think they got to get him a little closer to
Yeah,
the basket. I think they got to play Gobert too.
yeah, it's interesting because like in the first half before Ant had his injury, every time he ISO'd, they went to the boxes and elbows. So they really cramped in the defense and forced those passes to the shooters on the wings. And they did a similar thing with Randall in the second half as well to force those passes out to shooters who were cold. Maybe if those shooters are shooting the lights out, it's a different style of ball game. But it wasn't. Rudy Gobert, 2 points, not much on the offensive end, a
No,
lot of
he gave
fumbles
no,
on the
gave
offensive
you
end, but
yeah, gave you zero,
defensively,
gave you zero tonight,
yeah.
Yeah.
Defensively, he had good stretches, but you got to find a way. If he is on the court, you've got to find a way to keep him engaged on the offensive end.
Mo, I'm impressed by your defensive prowess with boxes and elbows and stuff. You
This
don't
is what
get
I
that
this
on
is
any podcast. You don't get that on any podcast in the US, man. This is
see
big time. I love
see
that.
this is the
Seriously,
thing. I
that's
just
big
love
time.
defense. I just love defense. The scoring, whatever, cool. Someone can take all the shots, take all the glory. I like defense. I just love the feeling when I play basketball. I love the feeling of taking the other team's best player and ruining his day. Deep down, I'm just a hater. That's all it is. That's where it comes from. I just want to ruin your day. If I'm guarding you, you're going to be pissed off by the time you go home. And then I
Yeah.
keep that now when it comes to these kind of
I'm
things.
gonna I'm gonna send you a Bad Boys t-shirt, buddy. All right.
My man, I appreciate you. Did you have a pick for this series? Who did you have winning it before game one? Anything else?
I had OKC.
Okay, see, in how many
I
games?
had
Because after tonight, uh, Timberwolves got
you
some
know,
serious thinking to do.
I think they'll win every home game, and I
Hmm.
think they're capable of getting a game on the road. So, but
Okay.
I think I don't think it'll go seven. So, I'm going to go with 5 or 6, believe it or not.
Mm. Hmm. Controversial.
Very, very.
5 or 6.
That's why this is being aired, even though we get it here. Mostly people outside the U.S. will hear it, but that's what I think.
Well, let's talk about the Eastern Conference Finals, which tip off tonight here in the UK. Tomorrow, we're recording this at a weird
Sure.
time. It's 4, 5 a.m. for me, and it's evening for you. But let's talk about the Knicks and the Pacers. Do you have a pick right off the bat for that series?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed the way the Pacers have played the whole playoffs. But I coached the Knicks. I was general manager of the Knicks. I grew up 15 miles from Madison Square Garden in New Jersey. So I would I think there is no better crowd in the playoffs right now than the Madison Square Garden and the Knicks. I would love to see them. It has been such a long time since we've won there. I would really like to see them win. I really would, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So, sentimental pick
Okay.
only.
Okay. Now
Sentimental only.
let's break down some of these matchups. Let's break down some of these matchups because you got two of the premier point guards in the NBA in
Hmm.
Jalen
Halliburton.
Brunson and Halliburton as well. You've got Nemhard, who is not a big name player, but he always raises his game in the playoffs. You got Josh Hart, who just gives 110% every time he's out there. You got Neesmith and OG, two gritty defensive players, but OG obviously is a more polished offensive player at this point of his career so far. And then, you've got the Pascal Siakam
Right.
situation because he's been part of a championship team. He's been
Yes.
there. He's done that with OG, who's on the Knicks. And then you got Bridges, of course, who the Knicks traded all their picks for, and then Cat and Turner. So it's in a weird way, they're kind of similar teams, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, Indiana's in the NBA. Indiana and OKC are what I call my Noah's Ark team. They got two of everything. You know, they got two point guard. They got such depth. And their style of play is totally unique. They pick you up full court defensively,
Hmm.
and they run the ball back at you every time. They want to wear you out by the fourth quarter. They're going to play a lot of guys. And I worked with Rick Carlisle. Chuck Daly and I hired him first time he ever coached. And the great Paul Silas was on our staff also. And Rick has evolved into this coach. He's changed his style of play about five different times, and he's landed on this. And it's a unique style for the league. I think it's excellent. Fits his personnel perfect. Here's where they have their big advantages. Miles Turner is just playing fantastic, and he's very physical. Um, and the thing about him is he just comes and plays every possession, every game. I love him. But Pascal Siakam is a real X factor because the Knicks really have four guards. They
Hmm.
don't play, they have no forwards. I mean, you know, Mikal Bridges, OG,
I think they're gonna have to put
Josh Hart,
OG on
they're all
Siakam because
guard,
OG's got the strength.
yeah, they're all guards. And Brunson's the small guard. They don't have depth. They don't have it.
That's
They'll
the
throw.
biggest thing, the
I think
depth.
so. Mitchell Robinson, he can come in and block shots, but he can't score at
Yeah, I think
all.
he's leading the league. He's hitting a historic amount of offensive rebounds, and also not just the offensive rebounds he scores, but when he tips the ball back to his guards to generate
Yeah,
another possession.
he's a terrific offensive rebounder. He's also a good, and he's a good shot blocker, and he protects the rim, but he can't
Would you
score, and he's a terrible liability on the free throw line.
would you not lean slightly towards the Indiana Pacers, given that they've got about 10 guys that they can, similar to what we spoke about with OKC tonight, they've got 10 guys that they can go to, whereas the Knicks and Tom Thibodeau, he plays six, maybe seven if you're lucky.
Right. Yeah. Tibbs plays his guys what we call playoff minutes, 82 games, and then
And,
does the same thing
and he
in the
gets a lot of
playoffs.
criticism for it, but here they are in the conference finals with a
No,
healthy team.
and in the fourth quarters, they've been one of the best teams in the league. They're
Hmm.
not getting tired. So, but here's the only reason I'm giving the Knicks the advantage is home court advantage. That's the only thing. In theory, they got four games at home. That's the only edge I'm giving them. Indiana's got a great home court advantage, but I'm betting only on that. Now, the Knicks have lost games at home in the first two series. I think they even lost two to Detroit,
Yep.
and then they lost game four to Boston. So I don't expect them to win all four, but with Brunson, they are capable of getting road wins as they did in Boston and Detroit. They in Detroit they won all three road
Yep.
games.
Yep. Yep.
Think about that. That's
Detroit
incredible.
home fans are still waiting another 10 years for a home playoff win. No, I've got no doubt they'll get it next
I
season,
think
but
the last time they won is when we were there. With the bad
oh
boys.
04, oh 04, oh 04. I mean, they were
But
pretty good for a stretch after that as
oh no,
well,
no,
but
they were
but
fantastic.
ever since they left the Palace of Auburn Hills, they ain't been the same.
Ain't been the same, baby. But so I think Indiana has the better team, but it's totally a sentimental home court pick on the Knicks. Totally.
The Indiana Pacers beat them in Game 7 in Madison Square Garden last year, though.
there were injuries. No OG.
Yeah, OG
Brunson was
played about
out,
five
and
minutes.
Brunson
Yeah.
was out too. So, but hey, it's a different year. Throw everything out. Indiana's much better this year, and so's New York.
Yeah. Who do you have winning this game one then?
Tomorrow,
Yep.
um, I'm going to go with New York. I'm going to go with New York. The momentum that they had the other day from Friday, hopefully they can carry that in. So I got them winning the first game, and Indiana's been off for a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird though in this playoffs.
Yeah.
The Nuggets won their game seven and then they came out and won the game one, even though OKC had been resting and waiting for them. But then this time OKC wins their game seven and the Timberwolves, they don't step up to the plate. So
No, when we won championships, when we in '89 when we played the Bulls, uh, we had 8 days off from sweeping the team in the previous series. Jordan and the Bulls finished on Friday night beating the Knicks. Sunday afternoon, we have to play them in the Palace of Auburn Hills. They come in and nip us at the end of the game. So we were the ones that were rested. They weren't. And they just came in and looked at it as a free game. Now back then we would play each other 6 times regular season. We knew each other so well. But so I think sometimes a layoff this time of year can hurt you. You don't
absolutely.
have rhythm. You don't have rhythm.
Yeah, because it feels like a lifetime ago since the Indiana Pacers sent the Cavaliers home. Like, I mean, that feels like a distant memory at this point.
And that happened to the Cavs. They beat Miami by like 100 points in the
Mhm.
elimination game. Then they had about 8 days off. They came back, lose 2 home games. You know,
Precisely. So
yeah,
we're going to see what happens in the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't believe how quickly this season's going now because we're two series away from the
I
NBA
know.
Finals now.
It's great. It's
It's
great.
all going crazy. But Coach Sir, thank you for joining the show today. It's been an honor to have you
Well,
back on.
it's an honor, man. And I'll tell you what, I listen to your shows and, uh, you know, the knowledge that you have and the way you express it to your listeners and stuff and the enthusiasm you have for the NBA, it's just phenomenal. And every time I talk to you, it's really cool because I'm talking to someone I feel like I'm talking to a coach, another guy, but you're really top of the game, man. Thank you.
That really means a lot, man. I really appreciate that. But
Well,
we do this all for the listeners. That's who we do this for. So
oh no, and you got great listeners. We have great fans in Europe
absolutely,
and throughout
absolutely.
the
The
whole
real,
freaking rest of the world. We have
yeah, the real basketball
great
fans come
fans.
to this show. You know what I
Well,
mean?
anytime you need me, brother, you know that I am on for
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. You guys will be hearing a lot more from Coach Sir coming soon. While you're here, subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. Be back tomorrow to break down game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. And until next time, get buckets.